Back in March of last year, I got sick in a way that I'd never been sick before. There was some respiratory involvement, and I kind of had a headache and like transient fatigue. But the main symptom was cognitive impairment. I had this like brain fog that kind of impaired my ability to solve problems. My memory was total shit. I would lose track of conversations. I had this transient aphasia where I couldn't even find the right words for stuff, which made writing a lot harder. And I'm pretty sure it was COVID. There was no testing available at the time because it was a brand new illness. So I'll never really be sure whether or not it was COVID. But like I say, I've never been sick that way before. And a lot of the symptoms did match, including the like COVID toe. So, but now there's research starting to emerge that the long haulers, people who experience symptoms for a lengthy period of time, have this cognitive symptoms persist. And indeed I did. For the majority of last year, through the summer and well into the fall, I was having this same brain fog, and it didn't seem to be getting much better. It was only in like September or October that I actually felt like myself again, that I was actually capable of solving problems and being clever and carrying on conversations without lapsing into unconsciousness. Now, a paper recently published in the journal Fatigue, Biomedicine, Health and Behavior suggests that this is actually an attribute of long haul COVID, where some neurological involvement of the virus is causing this fatigue, this cognitive impairment, these lapses in attention that is affecting a significant number of COVID patients. This is what bothers me so much about the people that claim that, oh, COVID has a low mortality rate. We shouldn't really care about this. This isn't a big deal. Because, yes, there are some people that end up dying, of course, which is not inconsiderable. But also there are people that have severe symptoms that don't die, whether they be respiratory or circulatory or whatever else. But this cognitive problem, this is a significant issue. And for the people that experience this, whether it be short term, just during the duration of the illness, or the people that, like me, had this months long period of cognitive impairment, this is not a virus you want to get. You don't want to get sick with this. And it also makes me think, like, what is this doing to the general population, particularly in hard hit areas where COVID has run rampant, where pandemic control measures have not been followed or not even implemented? What is this doing to the general public when a significant portion of the population is cognitively impaired or risk cognitive impairment for that matter? This kind of relates to other thoughts I've had about brain affecting illnesses and their social effects. The Zika virus that emerged in the Southern American countries in the last few years, that had significant impact on cognitive ability, particularly for those who are young, who are still developing. And this syndrome of like Zika developmental disorders, where childs develop with like shrunken brains, basically. If a significant number of people in the population end up with this, the societal effects could be an overall personality shift of a society. Take also, for example, the most terrifying thing I can imagine immunologically, the Toxoplasmodium gondii parasite. This is a little worm that reproduces normally in the gastrointestinal tracts of cats, whether they be house cats or some other form of cat. But they are brain-affecting parasites. So if something other than a cat happens to get one of these parasites, it can't actually reproduce because the gastrointestinal tract that it happens to be in is not a cat. But what it does is it affects the brain of its host to make it get eaten by a cat. So if this thing ends up in a mouse, the mouse's behavior will change so that rather than being afraid of cats, it will actually be attracted to cats. And so, like, the scent of cat urine, which typically makes a mouse run away, will actually attract the mouse, such that the cat will then eat the mouse, and then the parasite will be able to reproduce. This also has effects in other animals as well, and indeed it has effects on humans. The effects being different per gender and different per person, of course, but it tends to make people more neurotic. It tends to make people a bit more, I don't know, crazy cat lady syndrome, kind of. And I halfway suspect that I'm infected with these things. I may be a host to these things because I do have some of the symptoms that may indicate this, as well as being a crazy cat man myself. But, I, again, can't be sure about this. But the main point is, like, the estimates of the infection rate of this thing are somewhere between 10 and 20% of the general population worldwide, and in some regions significantly higher than that. There is some evidence to suggest that in places like Brazil, there is 1 in 5 people have this thing, 20% of the population. And so that makes one wonder, like, what are the overall societal effects of a brain-affecting parasite on that amount of the population? The leadership of this society, the people who are working in the society, doing politics, voting in the society, it has effects that I really can't even calculate. They're incomprehensible what these effects are. So this makes me very worried about COVID, because this pandemic is far from over. Even though we have a vaccine, there will be resurgences. There will be cases where eventually the virus will outcompete our vaccine and we'll end up with new novel coronaviruses, which will have some of the same effects, but possibly other different effects. What will this do to democracy? What will this do to us as a society, as a species even? Anyway, this is just some random thoughts. Maybe you might have some thoughts about that. I'd like to hear from you, so leave comments if you wish. So I make videos whenever I make videos, and so if you enjoy this content, algorithmic stuff, yada, 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 yada. Most people stop watching by this point, so thanks for watching.